Deputy PM Minister and Member of Parliament. I'm Dana Lam from Aware. I think we were left out of your roll call earlier.
Oh, you're under the board, the SCWO board.
I am also on the board of the SCWO.
Yeah, we're quite aware of your presence now.
I have two questions this evening. One is relating to where's the best place to live to raise a family. We are very pleased to notice that the government, and especially through the MCYS, has been increasing their encouragement of fathers to play their role in child care. The Women's Charter, which is currently under consultation for some amendments, which are very good, the Women's Charter has been providing for the equal sharing of familial responsibilities since 1962. So given this light, I wonder if we may ask the DPM, when can we see the extension of the paternity leave from the current limited number of days to be substantive enough for the men to have the opportunity to share in childcare more equally? A second question has to do with a research that Aware has done in 2008 regarding the workplace, sexual harassment in the workplace. 53% of the 500 people surveyed have experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. And since over the last 2 years, we have also seen an increase in the number of cases on our helpline. So because it's understood that sexual harassment does impact negatively on productivity, other than the health and welfare of the woman at work, and we are encouraging women back to work, I wonder if we may also ask if there is any consideration on government level, policymakers level, as to introduce any kind of prohibition or legislation that might discourage sexual harassment, which at the moment is not provided for. Thank you.
Well, rather than listening to your questions, I would prefer to hear your views. Dana, don't run away from the microphone here. Because when Mrs. Lim and Grace asked me to sort of have a dialogue, I thought it's more worthwhile to hear your views. So I thought I'd frame it in these terms of where's a good place to raise a family, where's a good place to make a living, and where's a good place to spend your senior years. So rather than answering specific questions, I thought I'd also want to hear your views on what you thought about these three issues.
What is a good place?
And perhaps you would want to share your views too.
I think that workplace or work-life balance has been continually an issue with us, and it is intensifying in the modern world because of the...
But you think that work-life balance is reasonable here, better than in other places, worse than in other places? What are things that we can do? I mean, that's basically what I want to understand.
It is, if we are to look at the continuing issue that we are having with the fertility rate, I think that it is quite clear that work-life balance is an issue. And from what we have been talking to people, work-life is
and you've compared this to other comparable cities and so forth, and you think that we're worse than other places? Say if you compare
I
to
don't
other
think that
cities.
we are much worse than other places, but we can certainly be better. Right?
But you've compared this to other places actively. Which other places have you compared this to?
I have not. I don't have the information on hand at the moment, but I do know that there's room for improvement because we are having people who are dealing with the demands of the workplace, and at the same time having to raise the family. So, and I am very positive about our place because I do see changes among my own peers and in the environment. I do see in the last 5-6 years more fathers playing an active role in child rearing. I do see changes in the male attitude towards family and towards child care. So, which is the reason why we talk about how are we going to facilitate these males to do their work. We had a small roundtable at Aware a couple of days ago.
I understand all that, but I'm trying to get a sort of a wider perspective on not just looking at Singapore, but looking at other places and seeing whether there's some comparison. And I think it would be useful if, for example, Aware, were to shed some light on these issues as well.
There's been quite a lot of writing and reports on the Scandinavian countries, right? And where the countries are, where the more equality between the genders that the countries have, and I think Sweden is one of them, the higher the fertility rate in the place. I think this is common knowledge. You know?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm June Go from Women Doctors Association, and I'm currently working as a consultant anesthesiologist. I just wanted to add on to comment on what Dana was talking about earlier. I can compare between two different countries because I've worked for almost 7 years in the UK. So there's a very different system from ours. There are a lot of advantages in working in Singapore because we have a lot of help. We have family to help, parents, mothers, and actually it's easier to hire help as well in terms of maids. But in terms of work-life balance, I mean, there are also a lot of positive sides to working in the UK. In the UK, they have a different policy in terms of maternity benefits. There's 6 months there's 4 months here, but I'm not complaining about the 4 months, mind you. The other difference is being able to enter the workforce again, because as women, sometimes you take time out to have children, or you need a certain flexibility in hours, for example, going part-time. It is, I can only speak from my profession, which is being a doctor. There seemed to be a greater flexibility in being able to go part-time and being able to move in and out of the workforce at different stages of their career. I think it's much harder here. I have colleagues who have taken like 11 years out to take care of their kids, follow their husband to Cyprus, and yet join the training with me as a junior registrar in anesthesia, although they were much older, quite easily and without much resistance. So I think that really enhanced sort of work-life balance because you can, go move in and out of the workforce, and having more than 50% of women doctors in the workforce now, I think it's quite important to keep us women in the workforce as well, to keep it attractive and easy to move back into the workforce. Okay, thank you.
So I think I would agree with June with regard to this part-time work and re-entry into the workforce. It requires some mindset change in terms of both employers as well as employees themselves. I tell you my experience in the Ministry of Education. When I was there in the Ministry of Education, I thought it would be a terribly good idea to have a part-load teaching scheme, so that instead of having say 70 teachers full-time in a school, you had say 2/3 of them full-time, and maybe another 1/3 of them part-time. So let's say approximately half load. So you have say 40 or so teachers, say 45 teachers full-time out of the 70, and then the remaining, how many are there? 25. Instead of having 25 full-time teachers, you may have say 50 teachers who are teaching part load. So I thought it was a very good idea. We tried to promote it. At the end of 2 or 3 years, I think there were a total of about 15 teachers on the scheme out of the 20 over 1,000 that we had in the Ministry of Education. So it was not a great success. Maybe it was ahead of its time. But it could also be the terms and conditions of service and so on. But I think in many professions, there certainly is an opportunity for this. And it requires certain rejigging in terms from the employers as well as from the individuals themselves. So as June was saying, if you have somebody who's quite senior and comes back and is prepared to go, say, into anesthesiology training as a junior, even though he or she may be 11 years more senior or older, I think that's something which is very positive. So it requires an adjustment both in terms of the individual as well as the employer. And I think also with people having a much longer runway in their careers, lifespans, this I think has become more possible also. So somebody who's in his 40s, instead of having just 10 years more to go in a career, so why do you want to train such a person? If such a person has 20 years more in the career to go, then it's a completely different perspective from the employer's point of view. So I think I certainly would welcome this. I'm not sure how much legislation would do to help, but I think it's really more the attitudes of employers as well as individuals. I mean, if individuals say that, well, I'm already 11 years senior, how can you treat me like a junior, and so forth, this person is 10 years, 11 years my junior, and I think I should be treated better than that, and so forth, then that also creates a barrier for re-entry to the workforce. So I think there's some flexibility that's required both ways. I agree with June also that there's quite a lot of positives here. Family is closer by. Help is much easier to get in Singapore, and I very often hear that that's a great positive for living in Singapore, bringing up families in Singapore, or even in the senior years when you're sort of less able to help yourself. With regard to the points that Dana brings up on the Women's Charter, extension to paternity leave, again with the way that we extended maternity leave, we have to be a bit careful how we do this, because the employers have to agree. I mean, it's very easy to do this by legislation, but then you increase the costs on the economy. Would you be prepared to sort of split maternity and paternity leave, and how do you do that between sort of the two spouses and between different employers and so on? So you have to weigh that up as well. Sexual harassment, I think nobody agrees, everybody agrees that this is something which should not be condoned at all. How you implement it in the law, and whether people are prepared to come out and sort of seek redress. That again is, if we can facilitate that, make it easier, and there's fair hearing on both sides, I think that would be something I would welcome too. And any sort of concrete suggestions on how we can do it in the law, I think we would welcome that.